And then another one, courage project. So a lot of time it's like we just have a lot of things that we could be doing and there's no focus. So what is a courage project? A courage project is a project that excites you. It scares you. It has to scare you, right? Because courage does not mean that we do things fearlessly. Courage means that we're afraid, but we do it anyway. So it should excite you. It should scare you. It should be service oriented. What do I mean by that? It has to make the world a better place. And you developing self-esteem and confidence makes the world a better place. So that counts. It requires courage, but you know that by doing it, you'll feel more fulfilled. And it could be a business, it could be life, it could be healing. You choose. Welcome to the Chingona Revolution podcast, where we will bring out your inner badass Latina, overcome self-doubt, help you gain clarity, and pave your own path, all while leading with courage. I am your host, Latina coach and speaker, Erica Cruz. Hello. Welcome back to Chingona Revolution podcast. I am so excited to share with you a free workshop that I held a couple of days ago. It was an amazing turnout. I had such an engaged audience, and it was all about how to go from procrastination to purpose and how to change your life in 90 days. I'm going to talk to you all about why it is that you procrastinate, what you think you need to do to stop procrastinating, why that's not working, what you should actually do. And I'm also going to share 4 different solutions with you inside of this workshop. At the end of the workshop, I do talk about my group program, Courage Driven Latina. And I hope you enjoy this free workshop. Fantastic. Welcome everyone to the Procrastination to Purpose workshop. I am so excited to share with you all today a little bit about why we procrastinate and how to stop. All right. From procrastination to purpose, change your life in 90 days. This workshop is completely free. It is sponsored by Courage Driven Latina, which is my group coaching program. At the end of the workshop, I'll let you know when the workshop's over. And then I'll tell you a little bit about Courage Driven Latina. So that way, if it's something that sounds in alignment for you and something that you're interested in exploring, I can tell you all about that and how it is that you can sign up. But I'll let you know when that part comes. So tell me, have you had the desire to learn something new, pivot careers, maybe start a side hustle, or begin a new project? I already know this is a yes, based on all of the conversations that were going on in the chat before I started recording. Do you find yourself craving a community outside of your current friend group? So don't get me wrong, you love your friends, but you feel like you've outgrown them sometimes. Like maybe they're just not exactly on the same page as you, and they just have different interests. And it's hard to talk to them about your goals and your dreams because they're just on different pages of life. Maybe they don't have a desire to start a business. Maybe they judge people who post on social media, and that's what you want to do. So you are in the right place if you have a strong desire to change your life in the next 90 days. And you don't really want to wait for the new year because you're ready to do something about it today. However, you don't have clarity on your purpose, which is making it hard for you to know what to do next. You are already so busy and you find yourself procrastinating on the dream that you have. So it's not like you're not doing anything, right? It's not like you're sitting there twiddling your thumbs or laying in bed. It's not like you are intentionally putting things off, but you are busy and you do find yourself procrastinating these things that you all just shared in the chat with me. You feel guilty for wanting more because you already have so much more than maybe the generation that came before you, right? Does this sound like you? If so, put a 1 in the chat so that I know that you're with me. Okay, I see a lot of yeses. Yes, I see a lot of 1s. I hear you. I hear you. All right, so here's where we're going. We are first going to talk about you're in the right place if. We already did that. Check, done. And then I'm going to give you a little bit of context into like, okay, I know what you're looking for. I know what you want. And I'm going to tell you what it is that's stopping you from getting it. I'm then going to introduce myself a little bit more formally because while a lot of you may know exactly who I am, some of you here are existing clients, past clients, but some of you may have just heard about this workshop. So, and then I'm going to go over why it is that you procrastinate, how to stop. I'm going to share 4 strategies with you that have helped my clients go from procrastination to actually executing what they want. Then I'm going to let you know whenever the workshop part is over. We're going to talk about what Courage Driven Latina is, if you feel like it's a good fit for you. We'll talk about all the next steps. And at the end, I will be sure to answer any questions that come up. So there will be enough time for Q&A. Any questions that you have, save them for the end, or if you could put them in the Q&A box. I do want you to engage, but any questions, we're going to save them for that period so we could get through the workshop. And then I'll stay on as long as you need me to for the Q&A. We are sending a replay after this, but you are here now. And because you are here now, then I invite you to be present, to be with us. Do your best to turn off all distractions, be here. Time is the one thing we don't get back. Obviously, if you're driving, pay attention to the road. But I did want to let you know we are recording this and the recording will be sent out later tonight. Also, if you want to take a picture of anything that stands out to you during this presentation, feel free. If you want to tag me, that would be great as well. I would appreciate that. All right, so what is it that you want? What is it that you desire? Yeah, you want to change your life in 90 days, right? Not in 90 years. You want to change your life in 90 days. You want to do it as quickly as possible. You want to have a community of like-minded people, Latinas, changing their lives too. I also want to be clear that this workshop is not just for Latinas. If you do not identify as a woman, if you don't identify as Latina, you're still going to get a lot of value out of this, so stick with us. You also want to align with your purpose and take action, right? You don't want to just take action. You want to take meaningful action. And overall, you want freedom. You want financial freedom, time freedom, and then freedom from family pressures. So you can simply be you, right? How many of us haven't been living the life we're supposed to live? And then we get to this place and we're like, oh man, that wasn't the life I chose. Like I was just doing what I needed to do, right? So you're really just desiring overall freedom from the expectations. You want to change your life. You want to be around other people who are doing it, and you want to do it in a way that's purposeful. And most importantly, you want to stop procrastinating on your dreams. And this is all possible for you. And I'm going to show you how, right? This isn't just like fluff. I've supported over 170 women with this framework, and I'm going to share that with you today. So, hello, for those of you who do not know me, my hair is normally very curly and long, and I recently chopped it, and it's straight today because of my Halloween outfit. So, my Halloween costume. So, hello, my name is Erica. I am the daughter of Mexican immigrants. I am a recovering professional procrastinator. I was so good at procrastinating. And 4 years ago, I was in your exact shoes. Everything that I just described in the earlier slides, I was there. I am now a Latina coach and speaker. You'll hear more about my story later on, but I'm the host of the Chingona Revolution podcast. Maybe that's where a lot of you heard about this workshop. And I'm also the founder of Courage Driven Latina, which again, I mentioned you'll learn about at the end. So let's get into the elephant in the room, right? We're all here because we want to stop procrastinating. What is procrastination? Why is this even an issue? So procrastination is a noun, and it means the action of delaying or postponing something. Okay, it means that you've made the decision to not take that action right now. You've made the decision to do it later, do it tomorrow, do it next week. So it is the action of delaying or postponing something. Why in the world do we procrastinate though? Well, you might be thinking, I just need better time management. Maybe you've tried something like calendar blocking, timers, maybe a planner, like a digital planner or a physical planner. Put it number 2 in the chat if you've tried any of these things, like maybe like calendar blocking or kind of anything related to that. A number 2. Yeah. So a lot of you, and hey, me too. I tried the bullet journaling thing, all of that. The Pomodoro method. Yeah. Yes. And all of these are I also want to be clear. I'm not hating on these. All of these are great. All of these are great, but these are not the reason. Time management is not the reason why you procrastinate. It's okay if you are looking to improve your time management, but that's not the reason that you're procrastinating. So those tools are all really helpful, but they're not helping you stop procrastinating. Because let me tell you why. If it was really about time management, then you would all be missing flights for vacation. I don't know about you, but if I'm on my way to Hawaii or if I'm on my way somewhere amazing, I am going to be at the airport early on time to make sure that I am there for my flight. You're not missing your birthday dinner, right? You're not missing your nail appointment or your brow appointment. I mean, I've been scheduling my schedule around my nail girl, right? We make time for these things. Or you would delay watching Netflix and notice that you're not procrastinating on any of these things. Why do we procrastinate then? We procrastinate because we are avoiding an uncomfortable emotion or feeling. Stick with me. I'm going to give you some examples. So before I go into the actual examples, let me just share a little bit about my story and how it is that my journey with procrastination and avoidance. So here I am. I'm the little girl that's 2 years old here. And I love this photo because it's like I'm looking up at the future generations that came before me. So there's my mom and my grandmother. And I love how I'm just looking up at them. I find it's a beautiful photo. And there's so many amazing things that I've learned from my culture and that I love, right? And I think we all feel this way. We all love our culture. But then there's parts about our culture where we're just like, that was not helpful, right? Like, why? Like machismo, like sexism. And if you don't speak Spanish, let me translate for you. It's a saying that is, you look prettier when you're quiet, which makes it really hard for us to show up and be seen whenever we were taught, like, oh, you just look better whenever you're quiet. So and I just want to validate that we can love our culture, but we can also refuse to accept some of the teachings that came with it. And one of the things that we are culturally taught, not just in the Latino community, but just in our culture today in general, we are culturally taught to avoid. And when I remember being younger and my father got really upset with my brother for something, and my brother was a teenager, right? Like an early teen, like probably a preteen. And I remember just feeling the tension in the house that there was an argument going on. And this is the caregiver, right? This is the caregiver. And I remember my father giving my brother the silent treatment. So if that's what we were taught, that's what we learn to do, right? As soon as there's conflict, as soon as there's discomfort, oh, I don't want to go there. I kind of want to just avoid. And then, a few weeks later, he'd get over it and then he would talk to my brother again, or a few days later. And if that's what we were taught, that then ends up spilling over to other parts of our lives. So let me give you another example. If you know my story, then you know when I was 26, I was engaged. And there was so many red flags, not because this person was a bad person. There was just so many red flags that it wasn't what I wanted. But because I was culturally taught to avoid, I didn't bring up the conversation of, you know what, this isn't what I want. This is a different direction than I was planning to go in my life. And had I not avoided and had these conversations in a timely manner, I wouldn't have ended up engaged to the wrong person. And then I wouldn't have had to break off the engagement. And I mean, no regrets here, right? There were so many lessons learned, but I'm just kind of going through a few different examples where I've avoided myself. Another one was knowing I wanted to leave the tech industry, but my mom, of course, wanting to keep me safe, was like, that's a horrible idea. You have a great job. It's so much better than, at least you're not cleaning houses like me, which, like, what do you say to that, right? You're like, yeah, you're right. So I just want you to know that it's not your fault that we were taught to avoid, because again, we learn what we are taught. If you speak Spanish, it's because you were taught Spanish. If you grew up in Japan, then you probably learned Japanese and we're part of the Japanese school system, right? So we learn what we're taught. All right. So now let's see why it is that we avoid. So we avoid because one of the reasons is you don't really care, right? You don't give AF, right? And this could be, let me give you some examples. It could be a project at your job, or maybe doing yard work or filing taxes. I mean, I'm sure there's some people out there that exist that are like, oh, I can't wait to go file my taxes. I am not one of those people. So this brings up negative emotion, such as boredom, dread, unfulfillment, right? If your job isn't feeling very fulfilling, then you're going to procrastinate. You're going to spend time on Instagram or social media, and you're just going to distract instead of actually doing the task at hand and just getting it done. What I really want to focus on for today's workshop is you avoid because you actually really care. All of the examples you all gave me, you care about. So maybe there's a project that you wanted to start. And some examples include, like, maybe you want to start dating, right? We're going to count that as a project today. Or maybe you want to launch a podcast, or maybe you want to start a business, or maybe you want to begin setting boundaries at work or at home with family members. Maybe you want to finish your degree. Maybe you want to build confidence, or maybe you want to be intimate with somebody and you really do care about all of these things, right? But then there's fear, there's doubt, there's a questioning of worthiness. And then there's maybe perfectionism that could come up. So these are the negative emotions that we are looking to avoid. So I'm going to take you through specific examples with, let's see. All right. So here is how I know that you are avoiding / procrastinating. Let's use this example. Let's say that you want to launch a podcast. And can you write podcast in the chat if this is something you want to do so that I know, so I could spend more time on the ones where we have a lot of people who are interested? 1, 2, 3, 4. Cool. All right. So we have people in the audience who want to start a podcast. And maybe even if you just want to start a podcast someday, right? This is still relevant to you. So let's say that you want to launch a podcast. You do research, you think of some names, maybe you even order a microphone, right? Maybe you go that far where you order a microphone, but you have yet to actually do it, to actually start it. Because you start to think, what if I get a bad review? What if I launch a podcast and I get a bad review? Or what if I start a podcast and I'm judged, right? Like, what are my friends and family going to think? Or maybe the thought of, you know what, if I'm going to launch a podcast, it has to be perfect. And if it has to be perfect, I need to do all the research before I could even start. All of these are causing you to feel uncomfortable, which then lead to avoidance and procrastination. Like if you want to start a business, start an Instagram page, right? Maybe you do research, maybe you even create the page and you never post on it because what is my family going to think? What are my friends going to think, right? So insert whatever example is relevant for you. Okay, example number 2. Let's say that you want to have an honest discussion with your partner. A coaching business. Yeah, Jessica, that's perfect. Like, let's say you want to start a coaching business. You can have all those same thoughts. So let's say this is more of like a life example. Let's say that you want to have an honest conversation with your partner. Or let's say you're casually seeing somebody and you're like, I kind of want to know what we are, right? Or maybe something's not working in your relationship and you want to have a difficult conversation. And you know that you know what you want. And you also know logically, right? You know what you need to do. You know that it's best to communicate. So then you start to think, okay, I'm going to do it. But wait, what if I bring this up and we break up? Or what if I'm not worthy of this relationship? Who am I to ask for what I want? And then maybe the other thought you can have is, you know what? The situation isn't too bad. Let's say it's something really casual and you're like, well, it's not too bad because like, I just don't want it to end if I bring up like, hey, what are we? If I bring up that conversation. So this is uncomfortable. So you avoid and you procrastinate, right? So you don't have the conversation because the fear of these things happening, because of the discomfort that this could possibly happen. So we just avoid. Another example, let's say you want to ask for a raise at work. You know you're underpaid and you know that you're due for a raise because you just had your annual review and you got praise, right? It was great. So you're about to ask your manager, but as you're going up to the office, you're like, what if I just get fired, right? Like, what if I ask for what I think I deserve and I get fired? And then the other one is, what if I'm not good at my job? What if I'm just replaceable? There's so many layoffs going on right now. This sounds like a horrible idea. I shouldn't do it. And then again, I should just be grateful, right? I should just be lucky I have a job. And then these things can really prevent you from having the conversation because it's uncomfortable. So you avoid and procrastinate. Let me quickly look at the chat. Yeah. So Marisol Sanchez says perfection plays a big role. Yeah. Like wanting things to be perfect. It's a massive fear that then makes you avoid and procrastinate. Yeah. When there's a what if, that gives other thoughts. Yeah, definitely, Patricia. So here's the thing. You think you need to be better at time management or, oh, this is another one I've heard, or to stop being lazy. None of you are lazy. No, if you're here at this workshop, you are not lazy. Okay. That is just not what's happening for you. It's not the case. Here's the solution. You just need to stop avoiding. I know it sounds really simple. I'm going to give you strategies on how to stop avoiding. You have to lean into the discomfort. You have to lean in to courage. Lazy is a trigger word for people of color. It is. Yes, totally. It's so true. Even with perfectionism is a matter of opinion. It's a made up concept and that we all experience. Yeah. Yes, definitely. So let's get into what happens when you actually stop avoiding and lean into the discomfort. Okay, so here is a quick recap because I know we've gone through a lot, but it's actually pretty simple. So you all want your life to look different. And you all want to do it in a way that feels more purposeful, that feels more courageous, and that you get to do it with a community of amazing people. You all have this idea of what you want to do, whether it's a pivot in your career, launching a podcast, starting a coaching business, whatever that dream project is, and you find yourself delaying and procrastinating, right? And we think, okay, maybe the procrastination is because you just need better time management. But now what we've learned, and through research, actually, this is all research backed, I should have mentioned that. What research has shown us is that procrastination actually is not about time management, because if it was about time management, you'd be missing your nail appointments and Netflix and all of that, right? And we're not missing any of that. I know we're not. So what's actually happening is that we are avoiding the discomfort. Maybe the discomfort that there's a possibility of failing, the discomfort that it might not be perfect, the discomfort that we might be judged, the discomfort that we might be criticized, the discomfort that maybe we don't actually feel worthy of what it is that we want. So what we need to do is stop avoiding. That's just a quick recap, especially because I saw some new people join. So I just wanted to get you all on the same page. Here is what happens when you stop avoiding and lean into the discomfort. In 20, I'm not even gonna give you years, I don't even remember. This is post calling off engagement. I had been thinking about starting a food blog for 2 years. I put it off for 2 years. 2 years. And when I finally started the food blog, I realized that it was fun, but it wasn't what I wanted it to do forever. But it taught me how to show up on social media and all of that. And then I started taking yoga classes and I was like, you know what? Maybe I want to do that. And it took me forever to let go of the food blog, but I was procrastinating on the food blog for 2 years. Had I already started it, I would have known right away if it was for me or not, but I didn't. So I end up holding on to the food blog for a little bit. I go to yoga teacher training at the end of 2019. And then guess what happens in 2020? All the yoga studios closed. So it was like, I closed this door on myself and this one slammed in my face almost. But I was getting better at not avoiding at this point. So then, because I was already showing up on social media from the food blog and sharing yoga content, there was a little app that was new that all the kids were on. I'm not a kid, I'm in my 30s, but that kids were on, called TikTok. One of my mentors was like, hey, I really think you should get on this app. I downloaded it, deleted it, downloaded it again. And then one of my videos took off where I was talking about imposter syndrome and how I felt silly being the only woman and the only Latina, or one of the few Latinas in the tech industry and in the company that I worked at in tech. I ended up going from no followers to 12,000 followers to 25,000 followers to 50,000 followers. And I was like, I should probably do something with these people. So then I created a guide to get started on TikTok. And people laughed at me when I told them that I was on TikTok because it wasn't what it is now. In 2020, people laughed. And at this point, I'm getting better at not delaying. But do you want to know why it was so easy for me to show up on TikTok? Nobody else was on there. So it was just like, I could just be myself. So I was not avoiding, I was not procrastinating. I did it. And then I created this. And then after I had about 100,000 followers, most of my followers were women, Latina, going through very similar things that I was going through. Literally what we all just talked about at the beginning of this presentation, where you feel like you lack purpose and you're ready to change something, but you don't know exactly how to do it. That's where I was. And that's why I created a program called Purpose Driven Latina. Now it's called Courage Driven Latina. You'll learn about it later. And then I kick off this program. And at this point, I'm just no longer avoiding. I'm leaning into the discomfort. I'm doing the uncomfortable work. And then I get asked to interview Luis Fonsi in 2020 on TikTok because there wasn't that many creators on there yet. So I got to interview Luis Fonsi for Hispanic Heritage Month live. This is the guy who sings Despacito. I couldn't even believe it until I got there and saw that he was on the other side of the screen. I was freaking out. Right. So then a few months later, I end up on the front page of the New York Times. The front page of the New York Times, because my friend Gigi recommended me, who I met through TikTok. And now I've met her in person. And then one of the other things that I was kind of avoiding and delaying was starting a podcast. But after all of this momentum, I was like, I just need to do it. And now I'm the podcast host of Chingona Revolution. We just released the 100th episode today. And today is also 3 years that I left my tech job to start this business. So why am I sharing this with you? Because I told you that I was the professional procrastinator. And it wasn't until I started using the strategies I'm going to show you that I was able to do this stuff. So yeah, my story is going to look maybe a little bit different than yours. It doesn't matter what you want to do. When we stop avoiding is how you're going to get to what you want to do, though. That's what I want you to know. So I'm telling you about when I stopped avoiding, right? These are two of my, actually Gia's still a client, but these are two former clients who, when they stopped avoiding, so I'll start with Gia. Gia is a self-love coach and an esthetician. When we started working together, she was a recruiter and would kind of do esthetician stuff on the side. But she had a lot of thoughts that being an esthetician wasn't something that was prestigious enough. So she was trying to make it work in the tech industry, even though she didn't like it. So she was avoiding her actual desire and her purpose because of what people might think about her, and was just focused on being a recruiter. And now she's a self-love coach and an esthetician, and she's doing facials in Campbell. So if anybody wants her contact info, Campbell, California. I know that we have some people from California. So yeah, she is absolutely crushing it. And then we have Rosie, and Rosie is now a recovery coach for women of color. But when she was going through her own recovery journey, right? Like alcohol is a form of avoidance as well. It's a form of distraction. And when she began to stop avoiding, she is now sober. She is now a recovery coach for women. And that's what she dedicates her life to do. All right, let's get into like how, right? How do we do this? And all right, we're 30 minutes in. So let's get through this so that way we can get to the Q&A part and we can get to talking and all that fun stuff. All right, so how is it? Here are the 4 strategies. How do we stop avoiding? First and foremost, your mindset, right? If you manage your mind, then you are controlling your life. If you don't, you're going to continue to avoid and you're going to stay in the same place. Have you ever heard of that quote? Whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. And, earlier we talked about like, this is what we need to manage. We need to acknowledge that this is the thought we're having, and then we need to challenge it. We need to challenge that thought because you get to change the story that you're telling yourself. So what about instead of, what if I'm not good at my job? You're telling yourself, I just got an evaluation. I have evidence that I'm good at my job, or I would have been let go if I wasn't good at my job at this point. And you just begin to find evidence, or maybe we'll use a few examples for these other ones, right? So this is the launching a podcast, right? So instead of thinking, what if I get a bad review? What if you ask yourself, I can change so many lives with my podcast through sharing my story. Or instead of what if I'm judged, maybe something along the lines of, what if my podcast grows and impacts my community? Or what if my podcast helps one person who's struggling with depression? Or what about, instead of it needs to be perfect, it gets to be imperfect, and I give permission for other people to do it imperfectly too. Something along those lines. And then an honest discussion with your partner. Like, do you really want to be with somebody who maybe, like we talked about being in something more casual? Do you really want to be with somebody who doesn't want to be in something with you? It's kind of better to know it, right? But these things are hard. They're hard to deal with. So we just avoid them completely. So maybe instead of like, what if we break up? Well, maybe something along the lines of, if we broke up, this wasn't going to work out anyways. And that sounds harsh, right? But we're reframing the thought. Or this person is lucky to have me, and if they don't value me, I don't need to stay. Or my partner's really understanding, and when I communicate with them, they communicate back, but they're not mind readers, so they don't know what I'm thinking, right? That's really different from like, maybe this just isn't too bad. That's very different. And then asking for a raise at work, I think we already went through that one. So let me just come back. Tony Robbins says that success is achieving through a plan that is 80% mindset and 20% strategic. So the truth is, friends, that you know how to launch a podcast, or how to ask for a raise at work, or how to pivot careers, or how to apply for a new job. You know how to do that. What stops you is the mindset part. What stops you is your own beliefs about yourself. What stops you is that own inner critic. So your thoughts influence how you feel, and then how you feel influences the actions you take, and then the actions you take dictate your reality. So what we need to help you do is retrain your mind. And let me show you, and with one of my clients. So before, this is Aurelie, she was just on the podcast, and she's just such a good example. Cognitive reframing, says Samantha. Yep, exactly. There's like law of attraction, neuroscience, cognitive behavioral therapy. All of those follow the same truths, that your thoughts influence how you feel, which influence how you act. And that's what we can change. So Aurelie was actually just on the podcast. I believe her podcast interview comes out tomorrow. Aurelie's a PhD student who's working on her thesis. And before learning about managing her mind, she was overworked, underpaid, what I called a toxic relationship with the leadership that was in the lab that she worked at. And she would stay late and work extra, like overtime all the time. And she had a problem with saying no to authority figures because of how, like, she wanted to avoid the negative feeling and wanted to avoid feeling negatively about herself. After working on her mindset and doing the reframing, she set boundaries at work. She's been working with me for 3 months, and she talks about this in the podcast episode. She started to set boundaries at work. She asked for 2 months off. Nobody told her to do this. She did this on her own. And before she says yes to something, she asks herself, do I actually want to do it? Instead of just yes, right? But before, everything was yes. And she said, what surprised me is how many of us have so many similarities with respect to how we get caught in our own self-doubts. And I thought I was the only one because I asked her about her mindset. This is what she said about her mindset. So you're all sitting here thinking you're the only ones that have those thoughts. Everybody has them, including me. Like if I showed you my journal, I mean, there's so many thoughts in here of things that I'm working through. So another one is a failure goal, right? A lot of times we procrastinate because we don't want to fail. We want to avoid the feeling of failing, but let me get into this. So my strategy for you all is to create a failure goal. So at the moment, you're doing everything that you can to avoid failure, and you're not taking any action that could result in failure if you're fearing it, right? If you're already afraid of failure, you're not taking action towards failure. Can you put a number 3 in the chat if you like fear failure, or if you're like looking to avoid it, or maybe you don't want to fail publicly? This is a safe space. We're not going to judge you. Yeah, a lot of 3s. I mean, hey, me too. And even as the creator of like the failure goal, sometimes I'm like, oh man, I failed. So I'm not telling you it's fun, but stick with me. We don't learn from our success. We learn from our failure. Can you imagine if everything in your life worked out perfectly? If everything in your life worked out perfectly, you would not be the person you are today. You wouldn't know what you know now. So inside of Courage Driven Latina, I have my clients participate in a failure challenge, and I want to share what that failure challenge is with all of you. So the goal is to take action on things that have a risk of failure. And the purpose is to show you that the fear of failure is actually worse than failure itself, right? The resistance and the fear of failure, the avoidance, right? To tie it back, the avoidance is what stops us from actually taking action because we're afraid of failing. So the interesting thing though, is that the more that you try to make it a goal to fail, the more you end up succeeding. So let me tell you all what happens with the failure challenge. So before the failure challenge, here's what was happening. My clients were spending all of their time overthinking, and they were afraid to make a decision in the event that they made the wrong one. Yeah, like, can anybody relate to that? I know I'm like, well, I just want to know already before I like make a decision because I don't want to fail. After the failure challenge, these people are incredible. They started to create and set boundaries at work, not even Aurelie, like a whole nother group of people. They started to post imperfectly on social media. They launched a podcast. They started to land clients. They applied for jobs, right? A lot of you who are looking to make pivots, they made offers if they already had a business. One person dyed their own hair. Somebody else developed a wellness training for a school staff, like was really just exploring and letting her try things. Somebody else signed up for the LA Marathon. Somebody went to their first heels class. That's the class that's like a little bit more sensual, and it can be really vulnerable. And then somebody who is a career coach posted on LinkedIn, and that was really scary to do because all of her old coworkers were on LinkedIn and they could see what she was doing, right? So This strategy, in summary, we've talked so far about managing your mind, right? So like reframing your thoughts. Second strategy is failure challenge. So making it a goal to fail. And when you make it a game like that, it takes away like the scariness of failing, because you're like, oh, wait, like I won. That's exactly what I was trying to do. Doing it in community is obviously a little bit more helpful, but even within yourself, can you make it a goal to fail? So some of the projects people have done in the past that I've worked with are, somebody started an Instagram live series to discuss healing in the Latina community. Melody started a candle business. Victoria took her first international solo trip. One courage-driven Latina built the confidence to start dating again after a divorce, which is really hard to do. Iris or Edie launched her life coaching business. Daisy started a running group for women. And I mean, I could go on, and I can't even tell you all the courage projects that I've worked on. But the reason that something like a project works is because it's specific, it's simple, and it's connected to a bigger purpose. I really want to highlight this part about connected to a bigger purpose. One of the best ways to stop procrastinating, besides of like not avoiding, is connecting what you're doing to a bigger purpose, connecting what you're doing to something bigger. Notice when I was reframing thoughts earlier, I said, with the podcast example, I said, instead of thinking about what if I get a negative review, it's like, think about all the lives I can change, right? So when you connect your projects and your tasks and your project overall to a bigger purpose, you're not going to give up as easily. And the thing about a courage project is you always know what needs to happen next because it's a project. So let me give you an example of somebody who was working on a project and before she had one. So this is Lupe. Lupe is actually still my client. And she lost her passion for being a health coach because she had an accident, which she has shared with me. She felt overwhelmed with like where and how to pick it up again because she had fallen off of her own fitness routine. So you can imagine, right? Well, the thoughts that come with that, with, oh my gosh, how am I supposed to help other people be healthy if I'm not healthy myself anymore? And I think a lot of you may fall into that. This is a little bit of a mindset-y thing as well. But after implementing a courage project, and I'm going to share her courage project with you, which was post imperfectly on Instagram 3 times a week to educate the community and bring on clients. She then began, so that was the courage project, post imperfectly 3 times a week to educate the community and bring on clients. So then Lupe began to build her confidence, show up on social media, and she reignited her passion for health coaching. And just last week, she told me that she re-signed a client. So she's been working not only with this person for 3 months, but for another 3 months. So she's killing it, right? For somebody to re-sign with you, that means you're doing an amazing job. And a lot of this was just because we made it really clear on what she needed to do and really clear on what she didn't need to do. Notice we didn't put in here, go start a website, go do all these other things. So a courage project is simple, it's specific. So I want you all to identify what would you be working on as your courage project. Sita brings up a really good point. There's also fear of success. Yes, especially for women of color, there's fear of success, and that is so valid, especially if you are in a community of people who maybe do not cheer when you win, right? That then we just don't even want to be successful because then we fear we may lose our community. So I'm going to actually get into that. Thank you for bringing this up. This is another before and after. This is Brenda. Brenda, before having a courage project, she had inconsistent self-care and spent a lot of her time overthinking. But after implementing a self-care courage project, she was able to connect to her higher self. So she said, I was able to strengthen my self-care rituals. I've been more consistent with my rituals and my routines to help me get grounded and help me cope with self-doubt and take action towards growth. So I had mentioned courage project can be anything, right? It could be confidence building. It could be business. It could be a podcast. It could be anything. So what matters is that it scares you, it excites you, it's simple, and it makes the world better. Those are the rules. Okay, here is what it is that, let me recap really quick. Here's what it is that you want. You all want to stop procrastinating so that your life can look wildly different in the next 90 days and that you can finally start to take action on your dreams. I hear you. What's stopping you is your avoidance. You want to avoid anything uncomfortable, and I get it. It's not comfortable, but the more you avoid it, the more it'll keep coming up. And this, you think that the solution might be to have better time management. But the solution for this is actually to stop avoiding, to lean into the discomfort. And how is it that we do this? By managing our mind, embracing failure and success, and starting the courage project, right? Starting the courage, identifying what it's going to be, making it really simple. And you're probably wondering, like, okay, Erica, why, like, how are you going to promise that this is going to work? I feel like I've listened to a bunch of these self-helpy things before, and I'm still where I am. And here's why, because there's one more strategy, and this one changes everything. Community. Community is not just a nice to have, because we need community for survival. We are social beings. When things get hard, this gets hard when the people around us shut down our dreams, right? Maybe your parents unintentionally, right? Or your partner unintentionally tells you that your dream is silly. Well, that's a very difficult environment to be in, to try to fail, to work on your mindset, and to work on a courage project, right? That's a really difficult environment to be in. So for example, like, I will never go to my mom for dating advice or for business advice, but I will go to her advice for any recipes, any Mexican recipes, I will go to her. And the thing is that you need community that's going where you're going, or maybe people who are already there. So people who are kind of on the same path as you, or people who are already there, because that makes such a difference. The accountability, seeing that you're not the only one going through this stuff, right? Like, let's just do a quick check from the people who are here right now. So let me go back to the chat. Can we put a number 4 in the chat if you've ever felt self-doubt? I think everybody in this webinar has felt self-doubt, right? Do you see all of the number 4s there? Yeah. Okay. Can you put a number 5 in the chat if you felt like maybe you've started to outgrow your friends? You know, it's like you still love them, but it's just things start to feel a little different. Yeah, look at 555, says Chelsea Cruz. 555. Unfortunately, 5. Yeah. And you know, there's nothing wrong with your friends. It just means you're growing on different paths. And that doesn't mean you have to break up with your friends or anything, but it does mean it's important to have a group of people who get what you're going through. Let's see. How many of you feel guilty for wanting more because you have so much more than your parents? Put a number 6 in the chat. I think we're at number 6. So yeah, so many of you. See, you're not alone with this. And whenever you're around people who don't validate this and maybe aren't really on the same page as you, it's really difficult to take risks and be brave. So Lizette's immediate circle before, like, didn't really provide support for her goals. And that made her worry about how she showed up on social media. Lizette stopped showing up because, of course, her friends follow her on social media. And if they were like talking mess about people who were posting on social media, and she's literally trying to grow a business by posting on social media, that's not the best environment to be around. But after a supportive community, she said, being surrounded by like-minded women who are on the same journey or even several steps ahead of me has been extremely beneficial and comforting to know that there's light at the end of the tunnel when self-doubt takes over, right? So it's just made a world of a difference in how she sees herself. These two women, these are their courage projects. Daisy created a running group for women, and Evie created a salary negotiation program for women of color. These were both created because of the benefit of community. So I always have to include this side in here. I don't mean to be morbid, you all, but sometimes it's like we're just waiting, like, oh, I'm going to do it, right? The whole purpose of this presentation is called Procrastination to Purpose. And if we continue to procrastinate, it's almost like, oh, we're waiting until, what are we waiting for? When this is it, this is our life, right? You're living your life right now. So whatever it is that you want to do, whatever project you have in mind, if you were to do it, I know that the world would be a better place. You would be a better person. You'd be a better mom, a better sister, a better cousin, all of that, right? And this is it. Like, this is the life we get. And it doesn't matter what's happened then, like in the past. What happens is what you do now. So one of the questions I reflect is when I'm making decisions, especially when they're scary, is what am I going to regret when I'm 80 years old? And I'm not going to regret, oh, I should have like got the newest iPhone. I'm going to regret, oh, I should have like tried that. And there's so much research on this where people have done research in nursing homes, and they've seen that the biggest regret people have is not failures. The biggest regret they have is not trying. Even if they would have failed, they would have rather tried than not tried at all. So this is the part where we end the official workshop, the official training. And now I'm going to tell you about Courage Driven Latina. So the best way to just start and implement the 4 strategies I taught you, which is managing your mind, failure challenge, courage project, community, is through Courage Driven Latina. Stick around, hear about this. Let me tell you what this is. I would obviously love to invite you, being that you're all here at this webinar, here at this workshop. It seems like a lot has resonated with you all, and I would love to have you inside of Courage Driven Latina. Let me tell you exactly what it is. So it's a transformational group coaching program to help you change your life, manage your mindset, execute your courage project, and find a supportive community. And the moment that you purchase, you get immediate access to the program. And then we have weekly live coaching and then a bunch of bonus workshops. So if you join, like next Tuesday, I will see you on the call because we have a weekly coaching. So you get a course and coaching and workshops. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about what comes in it. So within the first 30 days of Courage Driven Latina, you are going to go from procrastinating and putting things off to taking action in a way that feels easy. You're going to maybe think that you need degrees or certifications or more research before starting, and knowing that you can actually learn as you go. You're going to fear failure before, and then after joining, you're going to look at failure as an opportunity for growth and redirection. And you may be worried about what your distant family members or your coworkers think about you right now, but when you join, you're going to have such a solid support system that you're not even going to think about these people. And then you're going to go from thinking about your dreams to actually having a solid plan for them in the next 90 days. Here are some of the results from joining Courage Driven Latina. Mind you, we've had over 170 people in it. Some of the existing clients are here right now. Some of the former clients are here right now. We've never been asked for a refund for this program. Everybody loves it. 98% more confidence after Courage Driven Latina. 100% say they have more clarity. So if you're looking for your purpose, this is the program for you. 100% say that being inside of Courage Driven Latina has shifted the way that they think and they talk about themselves. 97.5% say that their community and support system improved since joining Courage Driven Latina. So look, there has been one thing that we've gotten a complaint about for this program. You're all like, what is it? People are extremely sad when it's over. People are extremely sad when it's over. And for that reason, I'm totally jumping ahead. I thought this was a different slide. Let me read this and then I'll tell you why we changed what we changed. What you get is weekly coaching calls, live coaching calls. Me or my support coach, my Deli, will be on there when I'm traveling. She takes the calls. We get 1 business call a month. I lead those. Then we have the Courage Driven Latina curriculum. You get monthly live workshops. This last Saturday, I brought on Dulce, who was my first business coach. She taught the group how to use AI for so many cool things. She pulled somebody's birth chart. She helped people create content on social media. She helped people come up with podcast names. Like, she did so many cool stuff. You get instant access to all of that. Access to all past workshops. There's also Slack support. So you don't just get the course, you also get support through Slack. You also get the Courage Driven Latina workbook, immediate access. Like I mentioned, there is a private podcast as well. So if you ever miss a call, you can listen on the podcast. So you get exclusive content that doesn't go on Chingona Revolution. Courage Driven Latina has its own podcast. And then this is what the investment is. It's $29.99 if you pay in full, or 6 payments of $555.50. But stick with me because there's more that comes with this. So this is the number one complaint we've gotten with over 170 alums. The number one complaint was they were sad it was over. They wanted more. Like, they were like, why is this 3 months? So we extended it for an entire year and it's the same price. So now Courage Driven Latina is something that you get coaching for, you get curriculum support, you get Slack support for an entire year, 12 months. So what's inside of the curriculum? There is find clarity on your courage project, right? So it's all about, there's a purpose module, how I overcame failure and found clarity, how to use visualization to really get a lot of clarity with what it is that you want to do. And then there's heal through your courage project. So there's a lot of healing in here as well, because remember, we're avoiding negative emotions because we don't want to heal. We don't want to see the parts of ourselves that we don't like. But here we have how to get started even with imposter syndrome, connecting with your inner child. This has probably been somebody's, like, some of my clients' favorite video. There's also working through trauma from a therapist, and also how to have self-compassion from another therapist. So it's not just me in here. There's like guest people I bring in. And then we also help you make a decision on your courage project. We help you pick something, and then we help you make a decision even when it's scary. And then there's so many bonus workshops. Literally, this was like updated today. So there's building habits, wealth, sexuality and pleasure, setting boundaries, growing your business, planning for a new quarter. There's the AI one we just did. So you can sign up by going to couragedrivenlatina.com. All right. So how do you know if this is for you, right? Like, obviously, if the webinar resonated with you, it is, but like, let me give you some examples. So let's say that on paper, you're successful, right? Everything's fine, but you feel internally like something is missing. Or maybe you've identified as the black sheep in your family or maybe your friend group, and you're honestly kind of tired of yourself. Like, you're tired of overthinking, you're tired of delaying, and you're really ready to take action. Another way you know is you know that you're meant for more and for something bigger, even if you don't know exactly what that is yet. And the other way you know is that you have many interests and you're not sure which one to focus on, right? So like, maybe you're like, no, Erica, my problem is I have too many ideas, right? There's a lot of you out there like that. So that's not a problem. Or maybe you know that you want to do, you know what you want to do, but you're not sure how to get there. And you feel like you need the guidance, the accountability, because you end up just struggling with overthinking. And then you have a hard time taking action. Or maybe you've had some life changes, right? Like, maybe you've gone through a divorce. Maybe you're ready to make a career change. You're not maybe even sure who you are anymore or who you want to be, and you're trying to figure yourself out. And I think the last point I have here is you've outgrown your friend group and you're looking for a community that challenges you, supports you, inspires you. And because you're here on the workshop right now, I know I've been calling it workshop, same thing. We have a 48-hour bonus. So if you've been following me on Instagram, I gave a little sneak preview of this. We are actually offering $444 off. We've never offered money on this program before, but let me tell you a little secret. I actually was not going to launch this program this year again, because we're redoing all of the curriculum and we're refilming it. So I then decided, you know what? Let's get more people in here, because then they can experience the existing curriculum and the new curriculum. So it's almost like you're getting two curriculums in one program, but you get $444 off. It does not matter if you choose the payment plan or the pay in full, you still get the $44 off. Sorry, $444, but it does expire in 48 hours. And we're also giving you a one-on-one purpose call to gain clarity on what project you'd work on with either myself or Maideli, who is my support coach for Courage Driven Latina. So we have not offered one-on-ones for this program since 2021. And you get a 30-minute one-on-one call with a coach where we get our eyes on your life, on your business, on everything that you're working on. But this bonus will expire. My team set it up already. So if you want to join, now is the best time to do it, because I want you to get the 444 off. I want you to have first dibs on the purpose call with the Courage Driven Latina coach. These two things can really make a huge difference. And remember, you get immediate access to this program. So you could literally join, go through the entire curriculum, and by Tuesday when we have our call, you could have already gone through the curriculum. Or you can take your time with it, and which is probably what I recommend. You can take your time with it and digest it, but you can start getting value tonight if you sign up and you save $444. So that ends up bringing the price down to $2,555. And let me just tell you a little bit about who the alums are. Like, who are people that have been in here? If there's 170 people, we've had people from ages 23 to 60 in this program. We have moms, we have dog moms, we have non-moms, people who've chosen, I don't want to have kids, right? We have stay-at-home moms. We have people that identify as non-binary, people that identify as female. Like, we have everything. Stay-at-home moms, nonprofit workers, lawyers, people who work in tech, aspiring business owners, advanced business owners, people who don't even care about starting a business, introverts, extroverts, people who don't have a college degree, people who are getting their PhD, social media influencers, and then people who don't even have social media. So Areli, the girl that I showed with the PhD student, she doesn't even have social media. She learned about the program because of Tanya, who I think you're here. And by the way, like, I totally invite you, if you're in the program right now or like have been through it, if you can just share your experience, I would appreciate that, just because yeah, I can tell you all whatever I want to tell you, but like, it means more coming from you all. So again, what do you get with this program? You get weekly coaching calls. So that means every week on Tuesdays for 90 minutes, we get on a live coaching call where you get coached on whatever you're struggling with on the videos. If you're having a life situation come up, a business situation come up, there's also one call per month if you want to start a business that's specifically about strategy and business. And then you get the curriculum, which is something that you get instant access to. There's the live monthly workshops where I will sometimes hire coaches to come in, or maybe I will just do them myself. Oh, Areli, you're here. Hi. They were both on the podcast. Tanya and Areli were here. Okay, great. So you also get access to all the past workshops. You get Slack support, and Slack is an instant messaging tool. So let's say that we have our Tuesday call and then your life feels like it's falling apart on Wednesday. You can ask for coaching inside of Slack on Wednesday. You don't have to wait until next week, which is great. And then you also get the Courage Driven Latina workbook and all of the downloadables, immediate access, and again, the private podcast. So the investment is $2,999 if paid in full, or 6 payments of $555.50, which you still get the $444 off. So here's another thing that had really come up in this round of Courage Driven Latina, and even in the last rounds. My clients expressed interest in starting a podcast. And honestly, my podcast has completely transformed my life and my business. Can you put a number 7 in the chat if you have found me through my podcast or something like, or if you've listened to my podcast, or if you, yeah, okay, a lot of you, right? Yeah. So podcasting has completely changed the way that my business works, the way that I've connected with people. And one of the big requests that we kept getting, people were working on courage projects and they were working on podcasts. So as of today, we just added a podcast course inside of Courage Driven Latina. I hired my podcast manager to create the course for you all because she's an expert at this. And she did an excellent job creating an easy to follow video, like little mini course for you all on how it is that you can start your own podcast, how to make the decisions and things like that. So that is another extra bonus. Okay, yeah. So Brenda said it was a great experience. I definitely felt heard and seen throughout. And I was one of those people who wanted it to last longer. So Fabiola, Courage Driven Latina begins as soon as you sign up. So on Tuesday, we have our weekly calls. You get access for an entire year. So you would just be invited to the next call, and you'd get immediate access to the online videos, which I'm going to show you all right now. So if this is resonating with you, don't delay. Sign up at couragedrivenlatina.com. Again, the investment is $299. You still get the $444 off. Brenda has sent the link inside of the chat so that you have that and you can just click on it. And then here are some of the questions that I think you're all going to ask. Okay, when do we meet? So we meet Tuesdays from 5, so the same time as right now, from 5 to 6:30 Pacific time. If you're in Central time, that is 7 to 8:30. And if you're on Eastern time, that's 8 to 9:30. And I had somebody in the last group who couldn't make most of the meetings, but because we have a private podcast, she was able to listen to every call on her way home on her commute. And then, so if you miss a meeting, don't worry, because we have the private podcast as well. And then, oh yeah, Brenda and Tanya, we're in it as well together. Okay. So does this work for me if I don't want to start a business? Definitely. Tanya and Areli are perfect examples. I'm sorry, Areli, we said on the podcast interview that they don't have businesses, but they still find so much value in it. You do not have to start a business, because remember, this program is all about helping you stop procrastinating, lead with courage, and take action. What if I don't want to post on social media? You do not have to post on social media. That's why we have a collection of different workshops, so you can decide what it is that you want to do. What if I don't have a ton of time? I work full time and I'm a mom. Yeah. And we're going to get to questions right now. I'm going to open it up for you all. But if you work full time and you are a mom and don't have a lot of time, you will not need a lot of time for this program. Remember, you get access to the curriculum for an entire year. So even if you sat in on the calls and listened to other people get coached, it is so valuable. Imagine being in a group where you're listening to people get coached and you're like, oh my goodness, that's exactly what I'm going through. And I thought I was the only one. I mean, we just saw in this workshop how many of you have similarities. What if I don't know what my courage project is? If you don't know what your courage project is, we help you do that. But there's that special bonus of 48 hours that you get a one-on-one call with a coach. So we help you figure out what that is. So there's no better time than right now. So sign up, secure your spot. And then another question is it a course or is it live coaching? How do we get support? It's both. Yeah. So you get courses on demand. And then you also get live coaching with a real human, like just like we're but except I'd be able to see you all, which makes it so much better, right? This is just because we got to have a lot of people in the webinars. We have to do it this way. And you also get support through Slack. So you can also ask questions there if you're more introverted and don't really want to speak up. And then I always get this question, is it true that you teach masturbation? Okay, I don't teach you how to do it, but I do support it. I do support it. I'm all about helping you regulate your nervous system. And that's one of the ways that you can do that. Thank you all so, so much. Have a great, great evening. And I'll see you inside of Courage Driven Latina. Okay, bye. Thank you so much for joining me this week. Make sure to visit theericacruz.com. That's Erica with a K, where you can subscribe to the show so you'll never miss an episode. You can help this podcast grow by supporting me with an Apple Podcast rate and review. If you took anything away from this episode, I invite you to take a screenshot and share it on social media so that your favorite badass Latinas can also check it out. Be sure to tag me at the Erica Cruz, that's Erica with a K, because you know I want to see it. If you're ready to join the revolution and be a part of the Courage Driven Latina community, visit couragedrivenlatina.com to get more information and join the waitlist. Thanks again, and I'll see you next week.